Welcome back. It's 2024 EXPers. We talked about LegalT. Welcome back. It's 2024 EXPers. Let's crush and destroy and dominate this year. Here goes. I'm starting my year out with the flu. So that's why the video's a little late, and that's why I sound like crap. So let's do this. Hey everybody, it's Chuck Gollop. I'm your Agent Advisory Council President, and this is our weekly meeting recap. Remember, you can click on the links below to get to the actual meeting and all the great information that happens every week. I hope you're going every single week. It's at 10 a.m. in the Minnesota State Broker Room. It's for North Dakota and Minnesota. All the brokers are there. All the agents are there. Great guests, great information, and stuff you need to know. So make sure you're there every single week. And if you don't have time to go there, I will post this recap for you. Can't wait to see you guys there. As always, we started the meeting by celebrating some wins. We had some really good stories from some agents, which led to some really good discussions about different ways to handle things going on in the business. If you don't go to these meetings just to hear some of the stories out of this, totally worth your time. So do it. One of the stories that came out of this is the fact that, and I wasn't aware of this, First American Title, a big national title company, was hacked, and their entire company was shut down, and it has affected closings all over the country, many of which are with EXP, and it can really have a pretty profound effect on what's going on, because remember, if you end the closing for whatever reason, beyond the closing date, because it didn't fund, it leads to a whole pile of paperwork that needs to get done, because then you are out of contract. So very interesting to find out if you have a deal going with First American Title and you haven't heard from them, they lost everything. They weren't able to call, text, any of that stuff. So it has been an interesting adventure. So watch out for that. We talked about Legal Tidbits by Andy Barnes, one of our brokers, and Andy is really good with this technical stuff. And guess what? We talked about inspection reports with a healthy reminder to everyone that inspection reports are owned by the buyers, unless it's one of these listing pre-sale inspection reports. But if your buyer conducts an inspection and pays for that inspection, they are the ones that own the report. So be aware of that. Don't just share it. You have to have permission. You don't own it if you are the agent. Get permission from your buyer. Another thing Andy talked about was if you become in possession of the seller's or the inspection report, you may be under the obligation to disclose. Remember, the buyer has one level of obligation regarding legal disclosures, and an agent has a heightened sense, a heightened responsibility toward legal disclosures. So consider what your role is in this, and if you are going to share an inspection report, Andy suggested that you put yourself in the buyer's shoes when you're talking about what needs to be disclosed. Is this something that the buyer would want to know? That the buyer is legally required to know based on your disclosure, and use that as your guiding star as you decide what should be shared, both as the listing agent, the buyer's agent, and what your role is with that inspection report. Training coming up in EXP. Andy Barnes is hosting Code of Ethics training. This is required module for many of you, depending on your cycle. So this is free offering from EXP. It gets this out of the way so you don't have to worry about your continuing ed classes. So watch for the links, because this is a really good class to attend, put on by your very own broker, Andy Barnes. And then reminder to everyone that forms classes are every single Tuesday after the statewide meeting. For Minnesota, they're 11 a.m. and for 12 o'clock, North Dakota. If you're new or if you're experienced and you need to polish up on your forms and learn what is changing and what has changed and how to use them, you get the idea. Go to forms classes. Again, Tuesdays right after the statewide meeting at 11 for Minnesota and 12 for North Dakota. Aaron Neubauer from our very own partner and co-op owned lender, Success Lending, was on board to talk to us about HOA rules and some of the questions you need to ask when you are either listing or buying a home inside of an HOA. There are some really important questions. We always talk about townhomes versus condos, and Michelle Larson Hoppe discussed this last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now. That's a really good one to know. But know the difference between different homes within those associations. Aaron talked about and gave a real-world example of a home that was listed as a duplex, but was questionable in the way it was listed, questionable in the way it was taxed, And this is a really important lesson for all of us. So attend these meetings because you are going to find out some really cool stories, and I don't think any of us learn any better than hearing from other agents with their mistakes and their errors and their struggles, because that's the best way to learn how to do this job. Aaron went through loan pricing, which is something I haven't seen the actual program he uses, and he showed us how he plugs in different numbers and credit scores and all that stuff. Come on over here, phone. To figure out his pricing. And I think that was really cool to see it in real world. It gives you a sense of what happens when your buyers say, I'm just looking for the best rate. Because we saw in real world what happens to the rates and some of the other fees as he plugged them into his calculator. It was really cool to see. Aaron talked about the Success Lending 2-1 buy down program, and many of us are familiar with 2-1 buy down programs. Maybe some of you aren't, so this is definitely worth seeing. But one thing he talked about is how you can use the Success Lending 2-1 buy down program to promote one of your listings and potentially, that's a new word, potentially hog that listing. You know what hogging is. That means both sides. Because you can advertise it and fish for some buyers for your listings property. Really cool example worth seeing about. And one thing they could do as part of this is create a single property website through Success Lending for your property, advertise a 2-1 buy down, use that to advertise for some buyers. How cool is that? Who doesn't like getting both sides of a transaction? Amy Berg from Compliance came in pretty much to remind us to get your documents in on time. Remember, they're supposed to be in within 48 hours. There's nothing worse to the compliance people than them getting notified of a closing that happened and they've never seen one of the documents. Really bad way to run your business, peeps. So get in there, upload your docs, do it within 48 hours. Don't be that person. What happens if you don't go to the world? Have you heard of eXp World? What is wrong with you? Of course you have. Go to the eXp World. If you haven't, you need a lesson. But sometimes we just don't have time to go into eXp World. It is available on your mobile. Granted, it's a little different experience. And if you need to get a hold of someone outside of eXp World, Andy rattled off a whole bunch of contact information, emails, phone numbers, all that stuff. So if you need to find someone and you just can't get into eXp World, do it. Do it. So check out the different ways that you can reach people through eXp Chat, phone numbers, emails, all that stuff. Reminder, NPS surveys. There are a bunch of important, prominent national companies that use these NPS surveys to determine how the companies are performing for their clients. Well, guess what? We, as eXp agents, are the clients of the broker team. So go in. You've heard this from me before and the brokers before. Fill out those NPS surveys. You'll get them quarterly. You get them on a lot of your transactions. Please fill them out. Broker hotline numbers were provided. Make sure you save them in your phone. I will flash them on your screen here in case you want to save them. But these are really handy numbers. Have I mentioned that I love my eXp t-shirt? I get so many questions when I wear this t-shirt out to a coffee shop. Get one of these. I got it at an eXp conference. I will see you all next week. Remember, attend the statewide meeting.